Okay, welcome back everyone. It's 9/3 of 2015. We're going to do a very quick review of the geometry of the soul for Aquinas, because in this section he only adds content for body. So we'll review the geometry and then we're going to look at the content for the body. And basically we begin with the sentient soul of imagination that receives sensations from the body and converts them to psychical phantasms, and gathers those phantasms into a collective whole. That collective of phantasms is transferred to the possible intellect, and they are transformed immediately to generalizations, and then the generalizations get the influence of transcendence to help them move towards signification. And that transcendence comes in the form of the agent intellect. The agent intellect primarily provides transcendence through word. It's intellection and word. Basically, that's how transcendence works. And it's also forces us to see that the generalizations are significations with deeper meaning, and that they are to be arranged in a hierarchy of being type model. So we get the influence of the agent intellect as transcendence to help us to illuminate us, to lift generalizations to signification, and to order signification into a sign model that represents the hierarchy of the true. Then we're going to take that hierarchy of the true model to the de Kunta threshold of dialogue, because we want to refine it to a better universality, and then it'll give us a better base out of which to posit our individuation for positing. So we take our hierarchy sign model to the de Kunta threshold. At Aristotle's de Kunta threshold, we offer up our supposition of the possible true, the universal true as we see it, up against other selves who also posit their notion of the true. And through dialogue, we compare signs, we compare structure, we compare trajectory and eschatology, and we end up with a more refined universal sign model. We end up with a more universal sign model, a further refined universal sign model that is receives further refinement by being measured against temporal continuum. And now, after we pass through the mediation of temporal continuum in dialogue, we close down our universal sign model to an individuation for positing into the real external historical world as a praxis-based positing of how we want to shape the world toward the good. So now we have a praxis individual model out of the universal, but individualized for positing. We posit that into 4a, the genus of the body, and it becomes the form for the act of existence. It becomes the form that the body will use to enact the act of existence. So we go sentient soul to possible intellect to agent intellect to sign formation and sign model formation to de Kunta threshold to refinement of universal sign model to particular individual sign model for praxis positing, and then to the realm of positing as the genus of body that will contain the form of our proposed action. And then when we get to the realm of positing, that's where the soul is actually going to actualize and define itself by going out of itself in an individual positing of the universal, and then waiting for the return of perfections in order to refine the soul itself toward perfection, and a perfecting of the possible intellect. So in this section, Aquinas says, well, let's take a look at how the body is moved by that form of positing. How is the body moved toward active existence from this realm of positing, from this genus of body positing of an individual praxis model? And in order to expand content for body, what Aquinas does is he kind of presents a smaller geometry within the geometry. So he gives us a 3-point geometry. He gives us a triangular geometry to put inside the geometry of body. So I've actually got 3 blocks in there. So we've got a triad within the overall geometry of the soul. We want to look at how posited form becomes the mover of the body. And basically in this section, Aquinas tells us that the basic composition of body is a composition based on 3 natural forms that express body. And that's the corporeal existence form, the vital existence form, and the sensory existence form. Those 3 forms, which are natural forms, are that which make up the sensate body. Now, soul is mover. As receptive, the body exists as a tempered combination of qualities. Aquinas wants to point out that the body is kind of a seasoned and tempered unity of sensations and qualities in its receptive mode. So it's kind of in a neutral mode for reception of form. It's kind of in a tempered combination. And then the body will internalize that posited form from the genus of body. Now, after that internalization of the posited form, we move to what Aquinas says is the disposition of the body to move toward higher perfection. The body does have a built-in disposition to move toward higher perfection. So the posited form is internalized as principle of operation. So now we go from form to internalization to principle of operation, and principle will be actualized through order of instruments. And these instruments are modalities. In other words, when we posit an ideality, when we posit an ideal form, it needs to find a practical avenue of modalities for actualizing the ideal. The ideal has to find a means, and a means means you have to find a modality for the expression of that ideality of form. So it will be actualized through a principle of operation that the form gives us, but it will move through an order of modalities. And so Aquinas tells us here in note D that the knowledge of the posited form will move the modalities of the sentient existence of the body in order for the active existence to be ready to proceed. So there is an additional mediation of sorts. There's a mediation of principle, and then principle will enact the modalities or the means for enacting the ideality. The ideality needs a practical means for implementing the form that has been posited and imprinted in the genus of body. So that imprinting creates a knowledgeable principle. That knowledgeable principle exists within us as a knowledge that is empowering. It's like the power of knowing. It's the inertia of knowing the truth. The inertia of knowing the true is a posited true. That this is the trajectory that the creation and the event is moving toward. And that becomes a power that actually will help us to identify the means and the modality for the actualization of the active existence. So we go from form to tendency, tendency to modality, modality to act. Form to tendency, tendency to modality, modality to act. So it gives us, like I said, it's content really, but in a way it's a kind of a subsystem structure. Because you could give it those headings. You could give it the heading of form, and then tendency, and then tendency informing modality, and then a means and modality, and then modality is ready to go into the final modality of act itself. So we do have a structure, I guess, but it's an elaboration of a structure we already had. So it's kind of like it's a geometry within geometry. It's a subsystem geometry within our overall geometry we discussed in the last lesson. It's just an additional mini triad of a natural form composition internalization of positive form in order to become moved. And then disposition toward perfection through modality. Disposition toward perfection through modality. And then modality that becomes energized and empowered will create the act of existence. It will implement that means to enact the ideality, and the act of existence will take place. And then after that, we have the surprise actualization of hidden latencies, hidden potentialities, and that creates, again, as from last time, the return of perfections, of new perfections we didn't foresee, back into the possible intellect, where we will re-internalize the new that we receive and reshape an entirely new concept of the true, an entirely new sign model of signification based on this feedback of a return of perfections. So we got a little bit of extra content just simply because we got some subsystem content for the realm of body. We got subsystem content for the realm of body. Gives us just a little bit more, and that puts us up through page 123.